So let's call this video number 2 on explaining the quiz. So we've already done the ones I circled. We already did 2, we already did 3, we explained 9, we explained 13, we explained all those on yesterday's video. Let's quickly jump to the ones we have not explained, even though you might know them already, just so you could have them there to study this evening. So when you go -5 times 3, you get a -15. And when you multiply the x squared times x to the 4th, what do you get? X to the 6th, because you add them. And then the y, you simply bring it down, and there's your answer for number 1. Moving on to number 4. So on this guy, what do? Distribute to each and every exponent. So there's a 1, and there's a 2 right there. So you're really going to have 3 squared p squared r to the 4th. And of course, the 3 squared is 9. 9p squared r to the 4th is your final answer. Number 5. You have to distribute, again, because you have parentheses and an exponent on the outside, you have to distribute that exponent to each and every other exponent. So there's a 1 right there, a 1 down here, and a 1 right there. You're going to distribute it to each and every one of those. So you're really going to have 2 to the 2nd, 3 to the 2nd, p to the 2nd. So my final answer will be 4 over 9 with the p on the side to the 2nd power. Number 6. So we do have a -6 in here, so it's a good idea that when we put the exponent of 1 and we distribute, it's a good idea to think of that -6 as if it were in parentheses, because it really does become a -6 squared and a p squared. And we should all know that -6 squared is 36. Final answer, 36p squared. No negative though. Some people put a negative on the answer. That's incorrect. Negative squared, after all, becomes positive. A negative times a negative is a positive. Number 7. By the way, the reason why I'm explaining all these is because these exact questions are coming out on tomorrow's test. It's like a second shot at the same test or same quiz. So number 7, we're going to distribute the outside exponent 3 to the 2 to the 3 to the 1 to the 2. So you're going to have 2 to the 3rd, x to the 9th, y to the 3rd, z to the 6th. And once again, power to a power, you multiply. That's why we end up with those exponents. So 2 to the 3rd is really 8, x to the 9th, y to the 3rd, z to the 6th. Okay, now over here, when I distribute the 2, you're going to have 3 squared, x to the, when you multiply, x to the 8th, y to the 10th, and z squared. Now, when you do 3 to the 2nd, that becomes 9. So you have times 9, x to the 8th, y to the 10th, z to the 2nd. So when we look at these terms, we could actually multiply the coefficient 8 times 9, and we're going to get 72. The x to the 9th and x to the 8th, you multiply them together, which means that you really add the exponents. So that's going to be x to the 17th. Not x to the 72nd. A lot of people multiply those. You're supposed to add exponents when you're multiplying. And then when you go for the y to the 3rd times y to the 10th, again, you're going to be adding. So that's going to be y to the 13th. And last but not least, the z to the 6th times z to the 2nd is going to be z to the 8th. You just add the exponents. So there's your answer. 72, x to the 17th, y to the 13th, z to the 8th. Move on to number 8. That's so easy. It's like a free point. 2 cancel with 2. You're going to have an x squared left over up on top. There is no need to write the over 1. If you want to, go ahead, but you don't need to write the over 1. It would be a different story if there was nothing left up on top. Then you would have to write a 1 up on top. But right here, you could just leave it as x squared. We did number 9 on the other video. Jumping to number 10. We're going to distribute the 2 to each and every term. There's a 1 right there. So 2 times 1, 2 times 7, 2 times 1, and 2 times 2. So we will end up with 4 squared p to the 14 over 7 squared r to the 4th. And of course, 4 squared is 16. P to the 14 over 49 r to the 4th. Ladies and gentlemen, we're done right there. Number 11, there's two ways of doing this. You could distribute the outside negative 2 to both terms, or you could change the negative term to a positive exponent by flipping the fraction. It's up to you. So once again, you could either distribute first, and then you have both negative exponents, and then flip it, or you could flip it first, make it positive, and then distribute. It's just depending on what you feel, right? So let's flip it first, and let's make it a 3/5 to the positive 2 power. And now I'm going to distribute, so I have 3 squared, 5 squared, which means I have a 9 over 25 as my final answer. Number 12, what's the answer?
1.
Easy, right? Anything to the 0 power just becomes 1. So the answer is 1. We already did number 13 on the previous video, which is already on Edmodo. Let's jump to 14. Let's cancel things out. This A cancels out with one of these. There's going to be 3 left over. There's 3 B's on the bottom that cancel with 3 of the 6 up on top. There's going to be 3 left over. So the answer is A to the 3rd, B to the 3rd. You could put the over 1, but it's not necessary. That's your answer. Number 15, you're going to take those negative exponents and move them to the other side. Now notice this isn't even a fraction. So you're going to put a fraction bar right here, and you're going to move that y to the negative 5. You're going to move it down. It's going to become y to the positive 5. That's going to cancel out. Or not cancel out, but you're going to, once you move it, erase it, obviously. You're going to take this x to the negative 8. You're going to move it down. It's going to become x to the positive 8. So it's no longer up there. So what do we really have? We have right now an x to the 3rd up on top. We have an x to the 8th on the bottom and a y to the 5th on the bottom. So now we could actually cancel out the x's. The x to the 3rd cancel out with 3 of these. There's going to be 5 left over. So let me zoom in here and put a 5 right there. So what do we really have left? We have nothing left up on top, which means you need to put a 1 up there. And there's an x to the 5th, y to the 5th on the bottom. And that's our final answer. You absolutely need that 1 up there. If you just put x to the 5th, y to the 5th, that would be incorrect. You need the 1 up on top. Okay? So if everything cancels and there's nothing left up on top, you have to put a 1 up there. Because 1 over x to the 5th, y to the 5th is not the same as x to the 5th, y to the 5th. Same thing like 1/2 is not the same as 2. You can't just ignore the 1 up on top and say that the answer is 2 if you get an answer of 1/2. Number 16. Distribute the bottom one. The 3 goes to each one of those. So you're going to have a 3 to the 3rd, r to the 3rd. So your new fraction is r to the 4th over 3 to the 3rd is 27. 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27 with the r to the 3rd on the bottom. And the r to the 3rd on the bottom cancels with 3 of the 4 up on top. So you have 1 r left up on top. So your final answer should be r over 27. Yay? Moving on, number 17, 18, and 20 were already explained on the other video. So if you still have questions on these guys, go back to yesterday's post, which is quiz video number 1 explained, right? This is video number 2. So we already did 17, 18, and 19 yesterday. Today we're just working on the ones we haven't done yet or reviewed yet. So number 19, let's work on the inside of the parenthesis first. I think that's easiest because you have an r to the 3rd up on top, which cancels out with the r to the 3rd on the bottom. And then the q to the negative 1, you could move it down and it'll become q to the positive 1. Now this other q is already a positive 1 down here. Let me scratch out this top q to the negative 1 because I already moved it down. So I really need to focus in on multiplying q times q. What's q times q? Q squared. So what do I have left? I have nothing left up on top. I have a q squared on the bottom. I still have the outside exponent of negative 5. So would you guys like to flip and then distribute, or distribute then flip? Flip first. Okay? So if I flip first, I'm really going to have a positive 5 if I flip it. So I have a q. Whoa, that's not a q, that's an a. So I have a q squared over 1, which is really not even necessary over 1. You could just say that all you have left is q squared. So you really have q squared to the 5th power. So what is q squared to the 5th power? What do you do with these guys? Multiply. So your final answer is q to the 10th. Ta-da! So once again, I want to emphasize that your test tomorrow is going to be almost exactly as this quiz that we just went over. This whole thing, right? Exactly like it. Now, of course, on this video, we didn't cover everything. There's number 2 was missing, number 3 was missing, all the ones that I circled in red. The reason why I didn't do them is because they're on the other video. So you guys have access to every single question on this quiz. The test tomorrow is going to be almost identical to it, but I'm also going to add a couple of more questions to make it a total of 25. Good luck.